The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Yankee baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the Yankee correspondent of the day is Wayne Unger. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. As a Yankee fan.
You're in. I was going to say Jacksonville, where Mert is. You're in Orlando, Florida.
I'm in Orlando, Florida. I'm in actually
Somebody out there wants to look at some real estate, sell some real estate, talk about some real estate in that area. Wayne is your man. Wayne, how can people reach you? This is off the baseball subject.
www.wesellorlando.net or www.facebook.com/wesellorlando. Or
okay, now
I'm pretty easy to find as well.
It's been less than a year and a half.
Today is actually exactly 9 months and 1 week.
Okay, since you moved from New York, and as a fellow New Yorker, grew up there, you stayed much longer than I did. Tell us about Orlando from the standpoint of a place to live, potential place to buy real estate, or sell your parents real estate after they pass away, or whatever.
I'm going to tell you something. I had someone contact me who's in New York. Her and her husband I have 2 kids. They're thinking of relocating. They live in Glendale, so they live in Queens. And I said to her, I need to ask you some questions. I said, because I'm going to tell you the truth, whether or not I think it's going to work for you, even if I shoot myself in the foot. And the first thing I said to her, I said, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a huge lover of Chinese food, don't come here. So, and
well, it had to be something. You found some good pizza, though.
I have found decent pizza. The pizza isn't as bad as Florida gets a reputation for, but it's not consistent. So, but right now, Wyatt and I are on a roll. We've been to this place like 4 or 5 times in a row, and what we do is though we order a fresh pie, but we order a small pie. So I think that helps. So we've been on a roll with that. I have found great Italian food, great traditional food, great Spanish food. So I'm fine. I'm good to go. The food is not an issue. The weather is great. You're not as during hurricane season, the weather is not as volatile as it is on the east coast or the west coast of Florida. But yet I'm only about 15 minutes away from a couple of different beaches. So that's really nice, and the beaches here are a whole lot nicer than going to Coney Island or even going to Jones Beach. So
at Brighton Beach.
Brighton Beach.
Brighton Beach with my
I'm talking about the sand. I'm talking about the sand, and I'm talking about the water.
Well, Brighton Beach won't be the same because my Aunt Sunny and my Aunt Bertha are no longer around to walk Brighton Beach. Yes, Florida, beach-wise, is a little nicer than Coney. What do you miss? What people ask me all the time about New Yorkers and what they all have in common, what their common denominator is. Do you miss that New York kind of vibe on a regular basis? Have you found New Yorkers that are living in Florida? Have you found that there are other people that don't live in New York that can be very friendly and very nice?
The people here are friendly. they say good morning to you and things like that. This may sound crazy, but with the exception of cab drivers, New York drivers, I feel, are more courteous than Florida drivers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I tell you what, they don't use turn signals, and I was talking to my barber about this about a month or so ago, and he's from Brooklyn, and he goes, you know why nobody uses turn signals? He goes, because when you put your turn signal on, people will speed up to cut you off. They don't want to let you in. And I find him to be 100% correct. So
that's a sad way of looking at it. I mean, it's a sad way of accepting reality.
You know what? And it's not my perception. It's other people's perceptions as well. And so, but it's still, you know what? Unfortunately here, I'm like painting Orlando in a negative light. I'm just, you're saying what do I miss? What are the differences? But Orlando, it's a great place. It really is a great place to live. It is growing, whereas New York City is losing people. The affordability is fantastic. There's no state income tax, and if you live in New York City, so that's a double whammy. It's New York State and New York City income tax. If you're looking,
may I ask you? Let me clarify this, because Texas has no state income tax either, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct, and I believe Nevada as well.
How do cities and states without income tax survive?
Well, I'm not sure how Texas does it, but I would imagine the hotel tax tied to the tourism industry helps a lot, well as the gambling out in Nevada does.
You don't get that in Texas as you would in...
quite frankly, I don't know how Texas does it. They manage to get the money somehow. There is, obviously. But in Florida, there's a hotel tax. And Nevada, they get, there's all the gambling, and also, Las Vegas as well. They might have a hotel tax. I can't speak for Nevada, but you know what? They make it work. They make it work. And as I was about to say, Orlando is also a great place besides the affordability for owning a home here. It's a great place to invest, and there are many different investment options, even for out-of-town people, without having the worry of, I have tenants there. What if something breaks? What if they don't pay this and that? We have something here called vacation properties that rent just like hotels rent, and you have vacation property managers. And I myself, doing Uber, and find more and more and more people renting these vacation properties as opposed to hotels, because they'll get a whole condo or a whole house for the price of a hotel, and they're able to cook. They have larger space. They're not cramped. They can relax if they're taking a break from a park for an afternoon. They have pool and other recreational facilities in a lot of these places. So, and these things, based on my experience and the research that I've done so far, they're doing between 6 and 7.5% return on investment per year. So anyway, enough of my shameless plugs. Let's get to the Yankees.
That's what podcasting is all about, shameless plugs, and I'm glad to give them, Wayne.
I appreciate it.
I'm a shameless plug giver. Let's talk a little Yankees. You are, why I like to go to you for this, you are, although an avid Yankee fan, you remain objective and always have. And I'd like it. It is now, April 26th, maybe 27th, because, you go to bed.
It is the 27th.
Everything changes the next day, everybody. That's my tip. So when you get up, it's not going to be the same date as it was when you went to bed. So I'm adjusting too, and it's the 27th, and the Yankees are off to, I would just say, an erratic start. There have been some pluses, been some minuses, and I want you to take it away, Wayne Unger.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can call it erratic. They actually were off to a slow start. And now they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. I mean, so I don't even know if you can categorize it as a slow start. I mean, we're talking, they're 15-9. So before this little surge, they were 7-7.
Well, so you would say it was a down and up season so far.
I can't even call it that. It's too early. I mean, what the Red Sox were what were they, 17-2? Oh my God! Now they're now all of a sudden they're 19-5. So they just went 2-3. Can you say it's an erratic season?
I watched the Red Sox be no-hit by Omar Namaya. Oh, not Omar Namaya.
No, don't do that.
Omar, drive carefully, my friend, from Newtown High School, the former general manager of the Mets, who was just brought back as an advisor to the Mets, and we may have put his life in peril. Every time I screw up a name, something happens. And we'll go back to the Gary Shandling story, which is very well documented. Ron Chandler lives to tell about it, but not Gary. So,
Sean Manaea.
Red Sox got no hit by the A's, and Manaea, if I'm not mistaken, is the player, just pronounces it differently. It's funny how names change when you change.
His first name is Sean.
Sean Manaea. God bless him, an ace pitcher, not named Graveman, who the ace of their staff on paper was just sent out to the minors, like 0-5, 8.8 something ERA. It's tough being an A's apologist from the North Bay in Alameda. So, hey, when you're not rooting for the Yankees, this is when I'm not rooting for the Mets, I get the A's. Who do you like, maybe in the National League?
Who do I like or who do I root for?
Yeah, who do you root for?
Oh, I mean, I root for the Mets.
Okay. Good.
I root for the Mets, but there are some teams I'm keeping an eye on that I tell you, I like what the Phillies did in the off season. Although Santana hasn't hit like they wanted, and they probably jumped in too soon, being how the other first baseman sat on the market. But I think Carlos Santana will come around. But they did sign a couple of relievers, and you can't say enough these days about adding depth to your bullpen, and then swooping in and adding Arrieta.
They got him on the cheap too.
Well, they got him on less years. His average annual value is $25 million. But and I'll tell you what's
it is more about the years than the dollars.
And I tell you what though, it's a very interesting contract, and I like it because for the past few years now, and this actually goes back to A-Rod's first contract with Texas. These players, they get opt-outs, which to me makes absolutely no business sense for a baseball team. they get an opt-out where if they're going great, they have few awesome seasons, they get to opt out and declare themselves free agents, okay, and put themselves back out on the market again to get an even bigger contract, and the team that signed them, gets nothing. Whereas if they go into the crapper, their contract is guaranteed and the team that signed them is stuck paying them. So the Arrieta contract is interesting, where he has an opt-out after 2 years. It's only a 3-year contract. He has an opt-out after 2 years, but the Phillies have the option of nullifying that opt-out if they want to give him one more guaranteed year. So he can opt out after 2, but the Phillies can counter it by giving him one extra guaranteed year and turning that 3-year contract into a 4-year contract. That to me is sensible and win-win.
Okay.
So,
may I ask you this? Collusion or overcorrection?
I have to say overcorrection. I don't know if the owners would want to go down that road again, and because let's remember now. I mean, you for the most part you have a different mindset of people running teams these days. It's the numbers. So, it's, it finally took some bean counters, in positions of power to say, these really expensive long-term contracts, historically have not been good. Why would I do it?
It took them 35 years to do it with the pitching. How many pitchers on long-term contracts have worked out? There have been a number, but not a whole bunch of them.
Exactly. No, it's actually, you can easily come up with those who worked out. The list is way too long for those that haven't worked out. Whether it be, so it's like I say, it's smart business, and also since it's I think it's recognized that there was a PED era, and with the even though I don't think it's completely eradicated, I think though that teams are now looking at players like, he's not going to have that special sauce to keep him, productive into his late 30s. So
presumably he's not going to have that source, and presumably he's not experimenting with human growth hormones, which are pretty much indetectable because they don't have a blood test. The union hasn't agreed to a blood test. So how much players are being helped, we don't know, but we know some are, because some are still getting caught and suspended from time to time. The guy that comes to mind.
but when was the last time a player of significance was suspended? Most of the guys that are getting caught are minor leaguers.
Well, that's true. But remember what happened when Ryan Braun did get caught, and he was a player of significance. And
he was, but you know what? We're going back 4 years.
But the monumental cover-ups are the unions and the league.
And he didn't get caught. He didn't get caught through a drug test.
It was a P test.
Okay. Well, he beat, somehow. All right. Allegedly, he did get caught through a drug test, but he disputed the timing of how long the sample was held, and that was overturned by an arbitrator. So that was nullified. He got caught up in the in the Florida thing that Alex got caught up in. Nelson Cruz. There were a couple of others, and basically the FBI raided this place and found the players' names in these records and shared the information with Major League Baseball. But it was not a drug test that caught them.
Well, it might be circumstantial evidence. With Ryan Braun, he threw the tester under the bus. There was no question about that. And
he made sure the tester was under the wheels.
Right. With the bumper ingrained in his head, yeah, absolutely. And it leads me to believe it's still going on on some level. And I just gotta say, I watch a lot of MLB, the MLB station, and they have a correspondent that is a former Major League player, and he played with the A's, he played with Arizona, and I just can't think of him now. But take a look at this guy. He maybe he's altered his body a little bit, only because his jaw is now the size of what a man's skull should be. So just take a look, see if it stands out, and go from there. Speaking of correspondence, my correspondence in the upcoming Comfortably Zoned from a vat of pine tar. In a vat of pine tar. The name of the show that's being produced for Sports Byline USA, the Ron Barr syndicated radio show, is in production, and I just secured my American League East correspondent, and he is Wayne Unger. So thank you for joining the network way back then and sticking with us. And now we have the opportunity to be in 200 affiliates, Armed Force Radio, Sirius FM, all those things. We're in Puerto Rico, all over the world with Armed Forces Radio. I'm psyched. The co-hosts are Peter Golenbach and Lenny Randall, and we're going to keep it up to date, talking about the future of baseball a lot. We're going to find out who's coming up in the minors. We're going to follow players along the way. And we, too, are going to go back and talk about baseball in the old days. We have several segments planned. One is with former Major League umpire Al Clark, and he's going to have Umpire's Corner for us. We're going to have a segment called Closers, Closing It Out. We have Mark Littell, former Major League closer, Skip Lockwood, former Major League closer, all involved with the Comfortably Zoned podcast radio network. They're going to join us on a Major League level. I'm excited as hell, and I am really glad you're a part of it. You've been, like I say, right from the beginning, you are my Don Corleone. Not my Don Corleone. What's the lawyer's name on?
I know the consigliere. Yeah, the consigliere. Tom.
Yes. And I can't tell you. when I have something come up, I take a deep breath and I think to myself, let me call Wayne. How would he handle it? He sees things from both sides, not only in the radio, not only in baseball, in life. And just got to tell you, I'm appreciative. So I thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. So listen, let's go back to the Yankees.
Okay. Now let me. Speaking of the Yankees and contracts, you could have guys coming up: Sanchez, Judge, and now Degraw. Didi has been unbelievable. Start there and take it away.
Okay. Well, I tell you, they don't have to worry about Sanchez or Judge for a while. They're still under control for a few years. So that's not an issue. Now,
problem maybe is that they come up together. When they do come up, they're going to be coming up together. Has there been talk of extending those two guys?
I haven't heard anything, and you know what? I would imagine that the Yankees would love to lock them up, at least lock them up through their arbitration years, and have have like a cost control, and not only that, like have a cost estimate, because
a long-term control that maybe you can get 2 or 3 more prime years out of these guys. It would be great. But, the A's tried to do that with Chapman just a few weeks ago, and Chapman's agent, Steve Boras, said, no, thank you. And
oh, man, now there go. See, former Major League player Steve Boras, you just put him in peril.
Okay.
It's Scott Boras.
I guess I'm going to be blamed. In the obituary, they will say, Ralph Tyko, radio guy from California, is the cause of that. He's being sought out on a warrant. I could see the FBI coming to the house, just knocking on the door. Are you doing this indiscriminately? Don't you care about humanity, Tyko? I said, no, I just don't have much of a memory. That's all. You got to give me that. What's Boris, the agent's first name? What's Boris is the agent's first name?
Scott Boras.
Scott Boras. Okay. So
yes.
This way,
so
I go back.
Getting back to their contracts. Okay.
Okay.
Sanchez is 25. I believe. Now keep in mind he's a catcher. I think they've probably got 4 more years of control. I'm not 100% sure. And I'm figuring at least the same for Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge, I believe, too, is 25. He might even be 26. I believe they said, I think he's actually 26. So here's the thing. If they were to give the Yankees, let them buy out their arbitration years and even let them buy 2 more years after that, those extra 2 years would have to be a lot of money, because what that does to them is that puts them on the free agent market at age 31 or so and 32, and these are just guesstimates, respectively. And the free agent market has not been kind to players that are over 30 years old and, this past year or two. Mm-hmm. So, they would have to think to themselves, I don't think, I think it would cost the Yankees a lot of money to extend them beyond the arbitration years. So, I think if you do see a long term with these guys, that's where I think it'll just be for the arbitration years. I don't know. I don't think it would make sense for them, and it would cost the Yankees. It would probably make sense for the Yankees because they'll still be young enough. But who knows? I mean, but I'm guessing it would take a 7-year contract and a very expensive one, and one that could blow up in the Yankees' face. I mean, you never know. Both have shown improvement. I mean, batting average-wise, Sanchez has gotten off to a slow start, but you know what? He's batting 208, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the fact that he was batting 150 a week or two ago, or a week and a half ago, that's an improvement. Not to mention that even with that low batting average, you know, he's still like, if you want to project his numbers per se, he's still projected to hit 41 home runs and knock in 142 runs. So even though he's batting 202, you know, he's
yeah.
coming
These
up.
are days of small numbers. We're not talking about
Exactly.
They haven't even hit 100 RBI, 100 at bats yet, if I'm not mistaken. Just
no, I as a matter, I think like Judge is at 86 so far, but he's over 100 plate appearances.
Yeah, I just looked up. He's hitting 370 something. So, whoa, with 7 home runs.
Who are you talking about? Aaron Judge? He's hitting 337.
Yeah. Oh, 337. Okay, yeah.
He's hitting
they
337.
I read it at 370 something, but okay, 337, not bad.
Not bad, and I'll tell you something. When you think about it, I mean, Yankees have dealt with a ton of injuries. Okay, Greg Bird did not have a great start, but you know he was projected this was going to be his year. He finally showed at the end of the season and through his playoffs through the playoffs last year, how he can hit when he's healthy. And then he goes down. But Tyler Austin
was out for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, but Tyler Austin has come in and he's like killing it. They brought Hicks was hurt. They brought in Brandon Drury to play third, and he started off nicely, but then, you know, he started having blurriness, concussion syndromes, and he's out. And so now actually you're back to that big question. And they also, they signed Neil Walker, and he hasn't done anything. And it's funny, I remember you asked me, earlier, a couple of months ago, am I comfortable with the Yankees having 2 rookies in their infield? And my answer was yes. And guess what? And now they have these 2 rookies in their infield, and they're playing great. You know,
yeah. Can't say enough about Didi. I want to go back. You didn't pick up on it. Do you like him? Are you happy with the way he's progressed?
I mean,
short.
That's a rhetorical question, isn't it?
Yes, in a sense, you got to be, right?
I mean, come on, like what kind of?
Am I mean, not happy. I guess absolutely surprised, shocked.
You know what? Well, first of all,
he had a lot of pressure over.
I don't expect him. He's on pace to hit like 61 homers. So we know we don't expect that, but you know, he has shown progression since the second half of the first season he got here. Okay, I mean,
and I like the fact that he had the guts to hang in there, taking over for Jeter. He kind of got off to a slow start.
He got off to a horrendous start, both at the plate and in the field and on the bases. Okay, and also you have to give some credit to Cashman for sticking with him as well.
Right. Speaking of which, I can't compliment the guy enough who could stick around through Steinbrenner eras. He was in there way back with George, and Cashman had 20-plus years with the Yankees. That's incredible. And
Yeah.
I'm about to call Kathy Lee. That's how incredible it is.
And getting back to Didi, a couple of weeks ago, somebody on Facebook in a Yankee group posed the question: is Didi Gregorius, or who's the better defensive shortstop, Gregorius or Jeter? Now, anyone who really watches the game and can be honest with themselves, and I'm referring to Yankee fans, it hands down, it's Didi.
No question.
But people were up in arms over that. So the same person that posed that question, he was, obviously he was screwing around with people, but he goes, okay, now I said it. Didi is better than Jeter, but of course he was just, inciting people.
Well, again,
but
Jeter at what age? And
well, I tell you what, I'll tell you something. I added some fuel to the fire. I commented, I said, well, keep this in mind. I said, even at a 10% regression, okay, if, that this season, if Didi finishes the season with even just a 10% regression, it'll be better than any offensive season Derek Jeter ever had.
10% regression from what he's projected at now?
Exactly.
Well, we talk about the law of large numbers and the law of small numbers.
Oh yes, I know. In other words, but I was just, the bottom line is people love Didi, but
he's standing out defensively too. He's improved so much defensively.
Well, no, he was always an excellent defensive shortstop. He just, he had that one that first half, he was just trying to do too much, and he settled right in. He has always been a good defensive shortstop. He has always had a cannon for an arm. So his defense was never in question.
Okay.
And
hey, we're talking about that it's the law of small numbers in this case, but dare I ask about Boone? And I was going to say, call him Aaron, but he could be Brett Boone for all I know, and they could both die tomorrow, and for all I was going to say for all I care, but not so. They're human beings. I don't want to screw it up. It is Brett Boone, former Yankee hero. Am I correct?
No, it's not.
No, it isn't. It's Aaron Boone. That's funny. More ways than you know. I'm starting to go. Slowly, if you take with a 10% regression between now and the end of the year, I'm a low-grade idiot. But that the law of numbers are too small. I don't want to project it out that far, and it's a long year, and I'm starting. When I start out, it's the bell curve. You got to make amends for me anywhere along the lines. Hey, is he fitting in? Are they fitting in with him? Is Girardi missed? What do you think?
I don't think Girardi is missed. I think they he's any manager today, okay, is subject to unbelievable scrutiny. So any little mistake or any perceived mistake, or any move that doesn't work out, because, we know hindsight is 20/20, is going to be magnified. So overall, they probably brought in the right guy. He knows how to handle the media. He's easygoing. The players seem comfortable with him. And secretly, from what secretly, from what I heard, not all the players were completely sad to see Joe Girardi go. It's not like they wanted to get rid of him, but a lot, from what I understand, there were a number of players, significant players on the team who were like, well, let's just say they understood the move. They realistically understood the move, but of course, they all said the right things in the newspapers, and that's the right thing to do. Like, there was no need to kill the guy. It's not like the guy was let go for some egregious act, some immoral act, some
he wasn't abusing
terrible
drugs
act
himself.
against humanity.
He wasn't an alcoholic. As far as we know, with all those things, of course, he was intense. He is an intense gentleman.
And you know what? But that's okay. You know what? If for an intense guy though, he kept you. Excuse me. He was intense, but he handled the media with calm and dignity. He was pretty good. He never ran away from questions. He was well spoken. But
I wonder how that goes with the players over a 162 game season. And there's always, if a team is losing and they have a hands-on manager, they'll go to a manager who's a little more of a player's manager. If they're losing and they have an intense guy like Girardi, they're going to go to a guy who you would think would get along with the players more, cut them more of a slack. And I think that's the case here with Boone. He's obviously no complaints from anybody. There's nobody screaming out. He seems to be handling it. He seems to be handling the pitching staff.
I mean, he's handling it, and actually, I tell you what, if you look at the Yankees, where they did have, I mean, everybody expected them to come out of the gate, but banging. But actually, their early troubles when they started out 6-6. The bullpen, which was expected to be a strength, has been a little bit shaky.
Mm-hmm. Chapman is getting to be a two pack, like Earl Weaver would say, 2-pack of cigarettes to watch him in an outing. He's been a little shaky, but when you have that kind of fastball and it moves the way his moves, pitchers are going to go through spells where they are shaky. It's a long season.
I don't think Chapman is the guy you can point to. I mean, the guys that have been inconsistent to me have been Conley, David Robertson, Adam Warren, Batanzas.
I'll tell you who's been great has been Green.
I'm saying, but like those guys, are the ones that have been inconsistent. And the other thing is, everybody said, okay, now Sonny Gray's going to be here from the start. It'll be better. He'll be solid. And, and he's been, a weak link in the rotation.
Yes.
So, but Severino has turned into an ace. Sabathia has been steady. Montgomery has been steady. Tanaka, so,
it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. And, they look to have they look like they have a well-rounded team. But to be fair, it's, they're going to have a battle with the Red Sox. The Red Sox, are coming around, and it's funny. One of my favorite players, and I know some people question, like, how can he be one of your favorite players? But he's actually having a rebound year so far for the Sox, and he's been very important. is Henry Ramirez.
Oh yeah, an old friend.
And so listen, it's a long way to go. But right now, Boston is in first place. The Yankees, though, after being down, they're only 4 games back. They're 15-9. Cleveland, as expected, is in first place. They've been a little shaky, but they're in first place. It's funny in the AL Central. Although after the Indians, no team is at 500, but nobody expected the Tigers to be in second place in the Central. Houston is in first place, but the Angels were on a run. They were in first place for a little while, but the Angels and the Mariners aren't too far behind. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of people were actually expecting improvement from your A's, and they've been playing good ball lately.
Yeah,
they've been playing good ball.
No question. No question. It's going to come down to pitching, and I don't think the A's have the pitching to take them very far, unfortunately. But, what do I know? I thought the Yankees were getting a great deal with Sonny Gray, and so far, no good. They gave up a bunch of prospects for him, and he had playoff experience and still a young guy. Some pitchers are, it's hard to tout pitchers, especially relief pitchers. Here's a good question. Speaking of pitchers and relief pitching, pitching is going to the point where managers don't want to see their starters go through the lineup more than twice. They figure the third time they go through the lineup, their statistics, and rightfully so, it's proven out that a pitcher's statistics the third time through the lineup are nowhere near as good as they are the first 2 times. But now you're bringing in relief pitchers earlier. So there's that, again, we go back to the Bell's curve. You got a pitcher who is going to the third time through. His statistics are going to drop, but you're going to bring in a relief pitcher who didn't make the starting rotation. So obviously, when rested, he's not going to be as efficient as the pitcher that he's replacing.
I disagree. I mean, you're not 100% wrong, but here's where it is. Number one, well, first of all, I think this comes from, this comes from analytics, and this is a point of order passed down from front offices, because the managers are not, very few managers are completely in charge of their own destiny. Maybe Buck Showalter is, maybe Terry Francona is, maybe Tito, maybe Bruce Bochy is, and maybe Joe Madden is, but most managers are taking a lot of orders from up above. Like, this is how we want you to manage. Like, there's a framework there. So that's number one. But number two, okay, the difference between in a large aspect, the difference between a reliever and a starter is the number of plus pitches they have. So a reliever may not have the quality repertoire as far as number of pitches. He may have a fastball that's just as good or better than a starter, and he may have one other secondary pitch, but he doesn't have that third pitch or that fourth pitch. So bringing him
but
in
the
to
system
go
that
through the order
requires,
once, bringing him in and not having to go through the order more than once, as long as his stuff is as good, is not so much I don't know if it actually presents a drop off.
well, there's the drop off if the bullpen is overused, and there's that fine line between giving a guy enough work and overusing him, of course. But if pitchers are going 5 innings, 5 maybe 6, I mean, Matz hasn't gone over 5 innings all year in any start, for instance, with the Mets. So aren't you putting more of a strain on the bullpen by reducing the innings of the starting pitching?
Oh, without a doubt. But the other thing is, to a small extent, they all, what managers are trying to do is they're trying to manage warming these guys up better. In other words, like, if a guy gets up and throws to loosen up and then you sit him down, you don't need him, and then you bring him up again, those warm-ups are use as well.
Yeah, listen,
so
they call that a
they're
dry...
trying to manage that, and the other thing is, just like you stretch a guy out to start to go more innings, it's, I would think that you can, somehow, and, train a guy to be able to maybe pitch a little more often but shorter stints, or, less rest. They're going to have to figure that out, and, things go in cycles. Like the shifts, a lot of guys change their batting stance. Like they said, wait, this whole, trajectory rate, like launch angle thing. Hey, you know what? Yeah, let me get the ball up in the air, because why am I hitting line drives or hitting the ball on the ground? Like they're shifting on me. My batting average is going down 40 points. So you're gonna, I'm willing to bet that we've seen less shifts this year because
one of the reasons we've
angle.
seen less shifts is teams are realizing they may guess right and have the ball hit precisely where the shift is going to pick up on it. And what do you do defensively? There's been times when they'll get a ground ball and there's no one over to cover you have 3 guys on the right side. There's no one to cover for the double play. So there's more to it than just having the ball hit where it's supposed to.
Well, you know what though? I don't know what the data was last year, but I do know that the data the year before, in Bill James's book, under every player, that he had, he also had shift efficiency, and how well they dealt with the shift. And let's just say the majority of the players had, their numbers were down on the shifts. Some players did better, were able to overcome the shift, but most players were down. I don't know what the data was last year, but the data showed that the shift was a positive. And, baseball, it's a game of numbers, a game of inches. And so if the data is going to show you, you know what? Yeah, I got a 6% chance, a 6% better chance of getting this guy out with the shift on than with the shift not on, then guess what? They're going to go with the shift.
Right. Well, my philosophy about managing it, I think it's more important that a manager communicates with the player and knows the player and sees beyond the analytics on a day-to-day basis. It's more important than how he manages the analytic part. It's finding who's going to go beyond the analytics on that one day? Did the guy have a fight with his wife the day before? Is he coming back from injury slower than before? All guys don't come back equally. So many factors in who should play and who shouldn't play that there's got to be the guy who can do both, who can transcend the statistics when necessary and manage from that standpoint.
Well, I tell you, to say it, I don't know if it's fair to say it's more important.
Equally important.
And we had this discussion. We had this discussion on Marketell's show. To me, you got to blend it. It's got to be a hybrid. To lean too far in any one direction, you're probably shooting yourself in the foot. You have to be aware. And let's face it. Listen. Analytics, in a much cruder form, have been around for a while. Come on. I mean, look at all the managers used to keep little notebooks. They would have notebooks on teams, and so it's not like analytics were never there. We just didn't have such broad, deep analytics available, and available to everybody. In other words, Earl Weaver kept a notebook, for each team, for each player, pitcher, batter. It wasn't shared. It was just for him and his staff. Davy Johnson used a laptop. He was ahead of his time. So analytics have been around and have played into decisions for a long, long time.
Isn't it interesting, though, Wayne, when you and I were projecting, even though they're small numbers, of what could happen between now and the end of the season, we were talking about batting average and home runs. Those are the two stats that we mentioned with those guys. So, be it as it may, they are the first two things. How's a guy doing? And you mentioned RBIs. So, although we both know that batting average and RBIs are limited in determining how a guy is doing. We're to OPS plus and stats like that are whips and stats like that are much more indicative of how a player is doing. We, as long-term fans, and you especially as an analytic expert or an aspiring one, or are we all aspiring?
No, I'm far from an expert. I'm not even an aspiring one.
Though.
I'm one who let's just say I openly subscribe to the idea of analytics, but I've been saying this for years now. You still got to use your eyeballs.
Right.
So
and then there are
and
RBIs on a baseball team. Can the guy get the runner over? All these things that aren't.
Well, and I'll tell you. You see, listen, the RBI. Now, a lot of people say the RBI is an overrated statistic, and I understand in some sense where it is. Okay. And I'll give you where it is, but I'll also give you an example of a player where you can't take that intangible from him. All right, where it's overrated, Mike Trout. He had nobody hitting behind him. He was pitched around, didn't have guys on base in front of him. Albert Pujols, still batted over 300. Still slugged in the high 500s, was on base. I mean, OPS in the 900s, maybe 1,000. And Albert Pujols, who would have an OPS in the 700s, was knocking in more runs than him because he had the opportunities. Now, I'll give you another guy who, where the RBI is not an overrated stat for him. I'll give you Miguel Cabrera. And Miguel Cabrera says straight out, he goes, I do not try, when I got guys on base, I do not try to hit home runs. I try to knock in the runs. Sometimes they turn into home runs, but I'm trying to knock the guy in. I'm not thinking about hitting that home run for myself. So, there's two ways to look at it. Don Mattingly batted third. I think it was 86, the year he won the MVP, knocked in 143 runs. He had two very high on-base guys in front of him. Okay, he had Ricky Henderson leading off. He had Willie Randolph batting second. And Henderson we know can fly, and Randolph had some good speed too. And the other thing, and this is not to take anything away from Mattingly's hitting abilities, but he also had Dave Winfield hitting behind him. And depending on who the pitcher was, some people might have felt more comfortable facing Mattingly than Winfield. And I believe they both hit like 340 that year. I think Mattingly just nudged him out for the batting title at the end of the year. So, we can go back and forth.
They say good hitting is contagious only because a good hitter makes everybody in the lineup better. So, I'm sure Winfield also made Mattingly also made Winfield a better hitter.
You know what? I'm sorry, but listen, Dave Winfield didn't need anybody to make him better. Dave Winfield was a superstar before Don Mattingly entered the major leagues. Okay, so I disagree. You can't. You may be able to find another example, but Winfield is to me is not the guy.
Well, having Mattingly in front of him didn't hurt him. Certainly, didn't hurt Winfield.
Well, it certainly didn't. But it certainly didn't hurt. It didn't hurt Mattingly having Winfield behind him. I mean,
right. That's what I say. Everybody's helped when a player is doing well. When a guy is doing well, it seems the guys around him do well. Just historically.
But listen, but Dave Winfield was already a superstar. It wasn't like that was the first year he hit 300. 340 was his highest batting average in his career, but he did have a couple of seasons at 308, another one at 322. He was, in the 280s, 290s.
Hey, when you think about it, what four guys would you rather have coming up in order based on their skills? I think Ricky Henderson, even though he did what he did, for some reason in his career, maybe it's because of his ego or whatever, he's going to go underrated. That guy could change. He, like Mays, like few others, could pick a game up. Jackie Robinson comes to mind, and just absolutely dominate a game from 3 or 4 different standpoints. He was terrific. I can't say enough about him. And those were 4 guys.
Oh, and by the way, it was 1984 was when when Mattingly hit 343, Winfield hit 340. So, okay. But again,
and Willie Randolph was the perfect guy to be right in the middle. Didn't mind getting the ball over to the right side of the infield to get Henderson over, and like you say, he was fast himself. That was the Joe Torre years that they were terrific, and I don't think we'll see years like that for a long time. But I've said that now in 3 Yankee dynasties in my life. From 49 to 53, they were unbelievable. In the late 50s and early 60s, they were unbelievable. They had what Fritz Peterson called the Horace Clarke years. But they come back with a vengeance in the 80s and 90s. It's had to be fun for you.
No, what they came back with a vengeance from like 76, to the, after 81, they kind of like, the rest of the 80s, they were, after 81, they were an extremely dysfunctional organization, just making terrible trades and terrible free agent signings, that probably were driven by George Steinbrenner himself. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before. Oh, and now I can't think of the guy's name. And I always come right out and say it. The bookie that George hired to get info, negative info on Dave
Winfield. And imagine.
Yes, I always say that's, he got George, and that got George Steinbrenner suspended, and that allowed Gene Michael autonomy to rebuild that team. And I always say that he should have, and he should have gotten 4 rings as well when they won the World Series. So.
Right. Hey, Wayne, this is terrific. I appreciate the Yankee update, and like you, looking forward to the radio show, and happy that you are the correspondent for the National League West. National League East. How about that?
East.
As I put my radio.
It's a good thing the National League West is in a
voice
person.
on. If you have nothing to say, you don't need a radio voice. I already have a face for radio. So what am I doing? It'll be the American League East. How about that? Wayne, thank you for a lot of things.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, Ralph. I appreciate you bringing me into this as well. And,
I appreciate your friendship.
The guy's name.
More than any of this stuff, I appreciate your friendship. That's all.
Thank you.
You say that.
The guy, by the way, the guy's name was Howard Spira.
Right.
So Howard Spira should be wearing 4 World Series rings as well.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
I wonder where he is now. If he's some sort of witness protection program.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Talk soon, Wayne.
But
thank you for listening, everybody.
You know what? I'm going to Google that.
Right. Okay. You'll let us know next episode. How about that?
You got it. All right, man.
All right. Be good.
Talk to you later.
Keep them flying. Everybody, if you're listening out there, do me a solid. Wrap up, box up some lightly used children's books and take them down to the Head Start program in whatever community you live. Kids need to read. They need to become school ready. They need to develop a passion somewhere along the line, get their imagination going. And most of all, as far as I'm concerned, they need to take their noses out of the devices and the computers all day and read a good book. Can't recommend that enough. The kids that need it are the kids that will be benefited by the Head Start program. So you can make a difference in your community, and I'd appreciate it. The name of the show is New York Yankee Baseball, Past, Present, Future. The network is the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko, obviously the weak link of radio. Adios. Thanks again, Wayne. See you next week, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.